Cam Rogers coming at you alongside Tom Downey. Let's talk about Le'Veon Bell because he could be on the move. And Tom, we could be talking days here, or we could be talking weeks until October 30th.
I think we're going to be talking weeks. I don't know if it's going to be all the way up until October 30th. Of course, if he doesn't get traded, that's what's going to be the case because these rumors are not going to go away anytime soon.
Sure.
But if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you are now listening for trade offers for Le'Veon Bell, which is a noticeable change in their mindset. At first, as most teams tend to do, you say, oh, no, we're not going to listen to trade offers for our superstar player. And then things start to change when maybe the reality sets in a little bit where, oh, man, not only is he not going to re-sign with us, he might not come back till week 10. At that point, maybe you should just trade him. Now, the issue is, and I'll be honest with you, I have a tough time determining the proper value for Lev Bell because the player is amazing. He's one of probably the 5 best offensive weapons in the NFL. But you got to pay him an obscene amount of money after this year, and you're only going to get him for what? At most 3/4 of the season, probably going to be more like closer to half of the year. Mm-hmm. So that's going to plummet his trade value. And of course, it is possible he has to, sign the franchise tender, and then a team has to actually have the cap space to afford him, which does limit the potential pool there.
And I think it could be a Khalil Mack type of situation where, Mack got paid by the Chicago Bears, and maybe Bell gets promised he'll get paid later in 2019. In terms of whether it's going to happen, we have BetDSI weighing in with the odds. They say yes for -170 of Bell being traded during the season, no for +140.
I think I lean toward the yes because I think it makes sense for Pittsburgh. The issue is they're going to ask for at minimum a 3rd-round pick because that's what they would have, in theory, get via the compensatory draft process. So I would vote yes, but the 3rd-round pick is kind of your baseline for all these trades that we're about to go through here for the possibility of a Lev Bell move.
You guys can bet on that and so much more using BetDSI, chatsports.com/bet. Guys, we negotiated a promo code and a special deposit bonus just for you, 120%, Tom.
Yeah, put down $100. They'll give you $120 for free for a grand total of $220 if you sign up at chatsports.com/bet with promo code LIVE120.
Okay, so Le'Veon Bell could be on the move here, Tom, and we're going to go through 5 key teams that we want the audience to zone in on.
Yeah, I'll also look at some other ones that I've heard mentioned and linked to as well that I don't think make quite as much sense. And again, kind of coming back to the value here, a lot of work for Lev Bell the past few years. I think that's going to be a concern for any team that trades for him. So I've seen these 5 teams mentioned in other articles, some other reports, and they make a little bit of sense, but there's also one big issue. So for the Browns, why would Pittsburgh trade him to a division rival?
Check.
Doesn't make sense. The Niners, they would have been in the top 5, Cam, but then Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt.
Correct.
Doesn't really make sense for a win-now type of move. The Oakland Raiders, well, they're 0-3. They have the money, but they also kind of got a logjam at halfback right now. The Patriots, I was intrigued by, but they did just make kind of their big move for Josh Gordon. And I don't know if Belichick wants to pay a significant amount of money to Lev Bell.
And they have to say for Des Bryant.
And then for the thank you. And then for the Eagles, I don't know how they can make that work. They've done a lot of cap magic, and to a certain extent, you can make almost any player fit on your roster. But for the Eagles, it's
pretty razor thin.
It's really, really difficult to make that even make a lick of sense.
All right, let's get into the top 5. At number 5, we have the Houston Texans. Now, this is an interesting dark horse team because Houston, for one reason or another, Tom, may feel like they are just one player away from kind of getting back into contention, but the reality is they're 0-3. Maybe this is a move they need to do.
And they got plenty of cap space, and I think a big boost here for the Houston Texans, Cam, is that they have 2 second-round picks in 2019. And as I went through trying to find good value in a trade for Lev Bell that kind of made sense for both sides, I kind of targeted the second-round pick. Now, they have Lamar Miller. They did spend a relatively high pick on D'Onta Foreman not that long ago, but he's on IR. Alfred Blue and Tyler Irvin, Cam, they don't scare anybody.
No.
And if you're Houston, and you kind of pointed this out to me as we discussed it pre-show, maybe they think they're just that one player away, Maybe they just need that one guy to get going.
Here's the problem, Tom. I understand that Le'Veon Bell is a revolutionary back. He creates his own yards. He's very patient in the way in which he plays football. The Houston Texans front 5, the offensive line, is not good. It can't run block. It can't pass block. And that's a big reason why this team is 0-3 so far this season. Yeah, maybe Le'Veon Bell can help, but you also, like we mentioned earlier, Tom, have to talk about the fact that Houston and Bell have to figure out some sort of long-term extension because I'll tell you this.
Hush, hush, don't tell anyone, but that's what we're going to have happen.
Right. The Texans don't want to rent this guy for just a few games,
They
obviously.
don't.
Now, here is one potential Le'Veon Bell trade.
We've got two, by the way, for each team, one with players, one without. I'm sure some Steelers fans, I'm sure we've already seen them on YouTube, Cam, and I know you have the comments up right now. Thanks, everyone, for watching.
I'm tracking.
I'm sure that they're saying, oh, a second-round pick isn't enough. I kind of think that's all the Steelers are going to get. Now, there might be a team or two that offers a first, but if you're Houston, you're not guaranteed that Lev Bell re-signs with you. And the reality is, you can at least pitch that to Pittsburgh as to why it should be less. And you're giving almost a hybrid, half rental, half more than a rental. So you'll see this rough value from most of these trades, guys.
That's why I think this whole story is so interesting. It's a tug and pull, if you will, where it's leverage against leverage in some ways. So Houston Texans, interesting.
2 second-round picks, their own and Seattle's. Let's just give Pittsburgh the higher of the two.
Fair.
There you go.
All right, another trade package here. This includes Foreman, Tom.
The way that James Conner has played, we kind of went back way, almost a month ago, or maybe 2 months ago, about what could the Steelers get in a trade package. I often included halfbacks just in case James Conner wasn't as good as he could be. He's looked pretty good, some promises. I want to see a better yards per carry. He's actually under 4 this year, but you could pair Foreman and Conner together, and you lessen the workload on James Conner. You have a good young player, although coming off his own injury in Deonta Foreman, and you get a 4th-round pick. And then for Houston, if you have Lev Bell, do you really need Deonta Foreman anymore? So it's one of those, okay, now we have a surplus of halfbacks.
Yep.
Let's ship one away, lesser our trade pick, or the pick we have going back in the trade, but still give up a decent one for Pittsburgh.
All right, so the Texans are there at number 5 on our list. Interesting name to watch out for sure. Let's go to number 4, something that I have been talking about many a times on my show. The Green Bay Packers perhaps making a deal.
I am less convinced than the Green Bay Packers have the front office to make the cap space stuff work out, and the longer that we wait, the closer we get to the trade deadline, the more likely the Packers make sense as a fit because they're going to have the chance to do it. Because the price tag of Lev Bell will continue to drop because it's a weekly salary. That's how his contract is structured. So it's going to keep dropping down. But Green Bay with only $8 million right now, it's tough for them. It's doable. And worst case scenario, Cam, they could just cut Clay Matthews. Although that wouldn't quite give them the max amount of money, but they could make it work, or maybe even extend Clay Matthews and restructure his deal, something like that. They could make it work. And then you look at their depth chart.
It's an underwhelming group, Tom.
It's a average running back committee. Darius Jackson also on the roster, you see there. It's an average committee. You can do better,
The draft capital that the Packers have tells me that maybe Green Bay is willing to get aggressive.
And that's what I have here.
Yeah,
in our first trade package.
First-round pick, Pittsburgh. Le'Veon Bell, Green Bay.
You had a first and a 4th, right? That was your initial trade
so
package?
I went a little extra.
And I'll make note of this. I don't think I mentioned it earlier. I am kind of projecting a little bit that this isn't a trade happens right now. This is a trade happens closer to the trade deadline, where the value does continue to drop for Lev Bell because you don't have as much time with him, even though you do plan on extending him. But look, a first-round pick, again, Green Bay has 2, one from the Saints, one from themselves.
Yep.
It's, I think, the best offer the Steelers would get if the Packers actually offered it.
I will say this too, Tom. I think Pittsburgh is more inclined to trade Le'Veon Bell to the NFC, not within the AFC.
I think they absolutely are.
So that's
which
why
I think is iffy roster management and construction because you should just get your best value, but we'll see.
All right, so we got the Green Bay Packers at number 4 on the list. Let's take a look at Gang Green. We have Isaac asking, well, Le'Veon going to the Jets, maybe it makes some sense. The New York Daily News, by the way, reported earlier that the Jets are inquiring, so they're on our list.
The Jets inquire about everybody because, well, they should. That's how good GMs operate. Now, here's why the Jets are only 3rd. Their cap space for next year makes them one of the premier, as far as I'm concerned, Cam. Hey, we can go throw money at players. That's why they're linked to Khalil Mack, for example, because they know they have the money to make this stuff work out long term. The issue is, Cam, the Jets don't have a 2nd-round pick.
That's a problem.
They're probably going to be drafting in the top 15 at minimum this year. If you're the Jets, are you going to trade a 1st-round pick for Le'Veon Bell? I don't think so. I don't think you can do it for a guy that you might be able to sign in free agency. Because you need those young players to help build around Sanders. Now, you can put together a different package that maybe makes a little bit more sense. But I don't think you can give your 1st-round pick. With no 2nd-rounder, you got to get a little bit creative, and that's why they're 3rd and not in the top 2.
You got to wonder, Tom, if the back channels are firing on all cylinders
Absolutely
right now.
are.
And GM Mike McGagnon of the New York Jets is saying, look, we're going to pay you in 2019. Keep that in mind. You know, one of those type of situations. We got a promising quarterback in Darnold, a defense that's getting better. And maybe that's the pitch point for the Jets. But if they were to make a deal happen, here's your package.
You have to give up some of your extra draft capital. So a third-round pick, one of their third-round picks, that one's going to be from the Saints, and a fifth-round pick. Because I don't think the Jets would trade a first-round pick for Lev Bell. I don't know how many teams would unless you happen to have an extra one, like the Raiders or the Packers, for example. And the Raiders probably won't either. So if you're the Jets, I don't think you give your first-round pick. And, you know, maybe they end up making a playoff push in a lesser AFC, but you're probably going to make this deal later to the trade deadline. By that point, the Jets might be too far behind. I think you would do it because the biggest reason why, it's going to help Sam Darnold.
For sure.
Like, you give him the best halfback in the NFL, or at least one of the top three guys, all of a sudden, boom, now you're sitting in a little bit better spot. That's why maybe you give up some third-round picks. I don't think you can give up anything earlier than that, though. That's the issue, at least in terms of draft pick trades there.
All right, so maybe the Jets make a move at some point before the trade deadline here. Devin Carter chiming in the comments section here. Tom, what do you think about this comment?
I think that's a big reason why you wouldn't see them do it. I think Devin had a very good point there about how maybe it doesn't make the most sense to go trade for a guy that you could sign in free agency, and that's why Earl Thomas, and even Khalil Mack in a bubble, got less than he's truly worth because contracts matter in the NFL.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so we got the Jets there
for
package number one. Yeah. Package number two, including Powell.
I kind of hate this one, honestly, because if you're the Jets, the Steelers don't really want Isaiah Crowell, I don't think. You'd probably rather have a little bit more of a closer to a scat back in Bilal Powell. You still get a third-round pick, so it ends up kind of being like the Deonta Foreman, but not as good in terms of the player. So I think if the Jets do it, it's for multiple picks that aren't their first-round selection.
Let's take a look at team number two, perhaps on the rise, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Hello.
Undefeated so far. They play tonight. What do you think about them? Run game has been interesting so far.
Little tight on the cap space, but enough that they can make it work, be it now or probably more likely later on, closer to the NFL trade deadline. They don't have the extra first or second like actually every other team on this list does, by the Jets who are actually missing one. They've been a big surprise, and the ground game has been good enough, but we'll bring up their depth chart here, Cam, and you'll notice someone very important missing on this Bucs depth chart, at least at halfback. Peyton Barber's your number one. Where's Ronald Jones?
Yeah.
He's been inactive. Their second-round pick, early second-round pick, hasn't been able to play because they like Barber as their first down back and first and second down back as their lead back. Yep. They like Rogers as their third down back, and they trust him more than Jones right now. So in reality, Jones is your number three, but Sean Wilson helps on special teams. That leaves Ronald Jones inactive. So if you're the Bucs, you're like, shoot, we haven't quite done it the way we wanted to with Ronald Jones yet, who's been a real surprise. So maybe they get aggressive with enough cap space to make it work both this year and next year. Maybe they get aggressive and send a second-round pick and a sixth-round pick to the Steelers. And I picked a sixth-round pick rather than, say, the fifth-rounder we did for the Houston Texans because I kind of think, Cam, if the Steelers got offered a second and a sixth by the Bucs and a second and a fifth by Houston, they might prefer to get him out of the AFC altogether.
I agree.
To not have to deal with him in the postseason.
Sure.
Beyond, of course, maybe a Super Bowl run.
And maybe they do that trade package there.
I think the next one, though, for this team is my favorite one.
Including
Ronald
the rookie
Jones.
running back.
Because it ends up being basically a second and a fifth rounder.
I mean, what are you going to do with Jones when you do bring in Le'Veon Bell?
You give him
cut
the Amir Abdullah treatment?
I guess. I don't
So
know.
if you're the Steelers, I know that you guys like James Conner, and you can clearly see why. Wouldn't it be more fun to have two cheap halfbacks at a fraction of the price in James Conner and Jones and have them just split time together? Because one of my biggest fear right now around James Conner is that you're working him too much. You're giving him a Le'Veon Bell workload for a guy that's never done that. That's a bit of a concern to me. So if I'm Pittsburgh, this one actually is a bit intriguing to me. A second, in reality, in Jones and a fifth-round pick.
All right, top 5 trade destinations there for Le'Veon Bell. Anthony in the comments section. If the Patriots were number one, you guys are idiots. Anthony, we are very smart people. The Patriots are not inside the top 5.
I do want to get to one quick question here from Man of Holds on YouTube, who says that the Steelers need to trade for a cornerback. They do, but here's the issue. No one's going to trade for a cornerback. No one wants to give those up. They're just too valuable.
All right, Tampa Bay there at number 2. Let's go to the Colts at number 1. Cap space, need. Perhaps they make it happen. There's been injuries at the running back position so far for Indianapolis, Tom. They have a good amount of draft capital as well.
2 second-round picks in 2019 and all of the cap space they could possibly want.
Plenty of it.
And a bit of a hole there at halfback, too. So makes sense for the Colts to be number 1 there if they're willing to move those picks, Cam. Because I'm a big fan of Marlon Mack. I know that they like Hines and Wilkins, too. But those guys aren't Lev Bell. And if you're trying to build out a better roster long term, doesn't that make sense for the Colts to give up, let's say, a second-round pick and then figure it out from there? Doesn't that make the most sense?
So you think you got luck. Now you have Le'Veon Bell. Those are your cornerstone offensive players.
And they're
you
still
build
pretty
around
young.
that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think they fit, maybe it's a little bit of an accelerated window, but it fits a winning window for both those players.
I say do this trade. Second-round pick, fifth-round
Second
pick.
and a fifth.
Yeah.
So we bumped it up because it's the AFC after all. So it's not a 6th-round pick there.
So you got to do it.
I think it makes sense for the Steelers. I just don't think they're going to get a first-round pick, and the Colts have no cornerbacks worth trading for either.
Yeah.
Once we get to the player version here.
Yeah.
So Steelers, they get some draft capital, and I don't think in the end the Steelers really fear the Colts per se.
Jeff Meyer, terrible idea for the Colts to trade for Bell. Jeff, who's going to run the football?
Is it really a bad idea to trade for a top-end talent
Yeah.
when you have the money to spend it? That's what
And
the Browns did with Jarvis Landry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, let's bring in a player, Marlon Mack, running back.
A very similar deal here for the Deonta Foreman one and the Aaron Jones one for the Packers as well, because Marlon Mack and a 3rd-round pick. So you still get a good pick back. The Colts have what might end up being a late 2nd-round pick if they continue to struggle, although maybe they do end up bouncing back a little bit. But for Mack, you get another guy to pair with James Conner. I think Mack is a little bit more of a scat type, 3rd down back. I think he'd pair well with James Conner. That's a really good 1-2 punch. And most importantly, Cam, it's cheap. No more putting $15 million towards Bell. Now you're putting like $1 million combined for those 2 guys. That's my mindset.
All right, we got a comment coming in from Mandala Green here saying Seattle should probably make a move for Bell. I saw a comment earlier about Earl Thomas and Le'Veon Bell swapping.
We did that way back as like a fun one because the Steelers, I think, would do it. But with Seattle?
I don't think Seattle.
Are they going to trade Earl Thomas for Lev Bell when they just drafted Rashad Penny and they also have Chris Carson actually playing pretty well?
A loaded backfield.
It's a fun one. I just don't know if it's the most likely outcome for those 2 teams.
Teams that could trade for Bell, our top 5 list. We have the Colts, the Bucs at 2, the Jets at 3, the Packers at number 4, and the Houston Texans check in at number 5.